time, I'd like to call the Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting for November 7th, 2022 to order. I am the chair, Councilmember Johnson for the 7th District. And just to note, I guess the air is not on at this point with the City County building, so excuse me. But let's roll. I'm going to call the roll at this point. Councilmember Harley, 4th District, Vice Chair.
Present.
Councilmember Oliver, 3rd District.
Present.
Councilmember Field, 8th District.
Present.
Let's see him online. And Councilmember Spadola. Do we have you online?
Present.
All right. And Council President Congo.
Here.
All right. And I'm just going to also look, see if there are other council members in attendance, or as you come in, please let me know, and I will make sure your count is being here. All right. As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. And then I will proceed into agenda. If there's any questions at council, of course, let me know as we progress. And members of the public, as always, those in person and also online, we'll make sure you have your hand raised so I can recognize you as well. And also, just before we dive into agenda, this is a great day. We do have our wonderful new Chief of Staff, Ms. Mona Parikh, here with us. So, hi, Mona. Thank you very much for joining us today. She's here in committee chambers, so welcome. All right, and at this time, I would like to proceed with the agenda. We have ordinance 22-41, which is an ordinance to recognize the creation, publication, and maintenance of a revised City of Wilmington organizational chart. The prime sponsor is Councilmember Oliver. So at this time, I will cede the floor to Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This organizational chart, this ordinance provides revised organizational chart for the City of Wilmington that includes photographs of the City Council, the Mayor's Office, the Treasurer, the Auditor, all administration, department heads, division, directors, and all boards and commissions. I thought this was necessary because a lot of us, when I say us, I say in general, individuals just automatically may know who the department chairperson is, but they have a whole staff there, and it's good for individuals to know who else to reach out to. I had a council person, Nathan, Councilman Fields, we had a discussion and regarding Public Works, and because Mr. Mitchell's no longer with us, it was hard for him to try to reach out to somebody, and they had this at the National League of Cities, and I think it's a good thing. So, like I said, if you're not able to reach Brett Taylor, it's other people that you're able to reach out to, and it's just a organizational start so people know who else is in various departments, especially for individuals who's coming in new, and as well as myself, because I don't know everybody in the various departments, so that's what this is all about.
And thank you very much, Council Member. And I also would like to be added as a sponsor. This is a matter that has, especially as we've been dealing with COVID, I know there's been a lot of replacements, but namely when there's key replacements, we don't always know. When we lost our transportation director, a lot of my colleagues didn't even know that the person had passed. And so, and that's a key position. So it is important if we could just update it as needed. It doesn't have to be, multiple times a month, but, once every other month or something like that, just so we know context, because we've been around the city for a long time, but even a lot of department folks we don't know, personnel and water department, it's just important, I think, for the public to know. So thank you very much, Council Member Oliver. And at this time, are there any other questions or concerns from members of council? Council Member Spadola.
Thank you. It sounds like a great idea. I think Councilmember Johnson just alluded to it. There's a lot of staff turnover, and at times, I find out just literally walking down the street from a neighbor. So this, I think, will help the overall communication between us and the administration. So, please add me as a co-sponsor. But I am curious if anybody, I guess, if the administration will speak on it as well. I'm curious if there's any reason to oppose it, because I can't see one right now.
Yes, we have Chief of Staff Washington here with us. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good evening, council members, Finance Committee. We're not opposed to it at all. We're not averse to it. I believe the ordinance really speaks to department heads and directors, and this will become effective when we roll out the FY24 budget and we present our organizational chart. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
And I know there's been some questions around when individuals leave. Sometimes we have to respect the rights of the employees that are leaving. Not always they would like to inform the general public that they have left employment. So, not in all cases, but in some cases, they wish that to keep that information to themselves. So we respect that.
Council President?
Yes, thank you. What does that exactly mean when you say we have to respect their wishes for the public not to know?
Yeah, so it's not always, and I'm not talking about department heads. Of course, if it's department head and division heads, that's something totally different because they're managing employees. But I'm talking about and lower down in the structure. There have been times when someone has come to us and say, well, I didn't know such and such left. And I said, they chose not to release that information. And actually that's their right. And, of course, if somebody's FOIA something and they want to know who's in a position, we have to let them know that. But when someone's leaving, they may have a reason why they don't want everyone to know. And so we respect that.
Just a follow-up. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Councilman.
So how would that affect us updating or not updating the organizational chart with pictures?
Like I said, you definitely get notice for the management structure. So the
Okay.
department heads and the division heads, you will definitely get notice for that.
Okay, all right.
But if I was talking about in the lower end of the structure of, the employee base.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up, Chief of Staff, so that would say Transportation Director. That's a position where if that position changed, we would be notified and the website would be updated, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Spadola.
Thank you. Just in response to Chief of Staff Washington's comments, I understand what she's saying, but I also think it needs to be balanced with the service that employee was providing to the citizens. And, if all of a sudden somebody's calling in and they're expecting somebody and the answer is, oh, that person left, well, that's not a good situation either. So I understand the need for confidentiality, but that also needs to be balanced with how public facing that person was and making sure that things don't go undone because they're gone. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Councilmember Field, floor is yours.
Yes, I would like to second what Councilmember Spadola just mentioned. I mean, these are public government jobs. It's not a private company, and all of these positions are serving some task related to meeting the needs of the city of Wilmington. And so I think that, if someone leaves and they're playing a key role, even if it's somewhat down on the chain, city council representatives need to know. And I can say that probably at least 3 or 4 times there's been a situation where someone has left and they have continued to get emails from constituents, and then constituents have come to me and said, well, so-and-so is not answering my email. And then I dig deeper and it's like, oh, by the way, that person left.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound very efficient. or effective. And again, these are government jobs. And, you know, our duty here is to serve the people of Wilmington. And so I think that I would also just respectfully like to push back along with Council Member Spadola about just the need to notify council members who have constituents come to them. You know, this is a very important thing, and I just want to thank Councilwoman Oliver for sponsoring this, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor too.
Thank you very much. So noted. Vice Chair Harley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to wanting to be added as a co-sponsor, two things. One, if the individual's name is on the organizational chart and they leave and their name is not removed, to me, that denotes inaccuracy. And secondly, as Councilmember Field just mentioned, if our constituents are reaching out to them, and again, if they leave and we don't know that they left, it just does not come across as professional for us to get calls or emails from our constituents letting us know that they've been trying to reach out to a city employee and they're not getting a response. So I'm not even sure under what circumstance or situation an employee will not want individuals to know that they're leaving. I can fully understand them not wanting us to know the reason, but to resign or leave a company and not make it known, that's problematic. And I would support that if there are any changes in the chart, I think we should all agree that it should be updated to make sure that it's accurate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Chief of Staff Washington?
Yes, just so we're clear, on the organizational chart, those positions are, the ones that are noted are of executive or managerial status. So their names will be on there. And if, like I said before, if a change would occur, then council would be aware of that. The individuals I'm talking about are employees that I'm speaking of, or could be a parking revenue enforcement officer or firefighter, someone of that nature. And just to correct a misconception about when someone leaves, their email communication is sent to their department head or the person who is taking over their position. It doesn't just, go off into the Netherlands. It's actually, we have the IT department that redirects those communications to someone of responsibility in the department.
Thank you.
Okay. Any members of the public have any questions? Concerns? All right. At this time, I would like to make an amendment. At this time, I would like to make an amendment to subsection A of section 2-237. This is line 9. At this time, where the comment, the period after replacement, I'd like to strike that. Insert a comma, and insert the words, within 60 days of such change, comma, unless protected for personnel reasons. Period.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of making this amendment to ordinance 22-41? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? All right. All right, this time, the amendment 1 to ordinance 22-41 has passed. At this time, if there's any other comments or questions on the ordinance with the amendment,
Yes.
Yes, okay, Councilmember Field?
I just would like to make a comment in general, also to make a request of the administration. When anybody leaves, setting aside the discussion about this ordinance, but I think it would be appropriate for an email to be sent out to all city council members saying, so-and-so has left and is no longer in their position. Because again, at least 3 times in the year and a half or so that I've been on city council, somebody has, for whatever reason, left their position, and that person has a decent amount of interaction with the public and with city council members, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and there's just nothing. But it wouldn't be too difficult to send an HR-related email saying, FYI, so-and-so has left. And that is something that could complement this ordinance. And I think that is reasonable and is good governance and good management and a good communication practice. And I think this is very important. And so, thank you.
Chief of Staff Washington?
Yes, I would be reluctant to do that because people leave for a variety of reasons, and sometimes there's actually possible litigation tied to when someone leaves. And so I really would refrain from having us to disclose everything, because you just never know what the rationale is behind it, whether, you know, they're let go for a short period of time for whatever reason, employment reason that could be, you know, something that we can't discuss in public. And then, you know, they may come back, or, you know, they may leave and they may have some kind of grievance or some kind of, you know, lawsuit against us, which precludes us from speaking about certain things. So I just would be reluctant unless somebody leaves voluntarily. Maybe that's something different, but, you know, for other reasons, I don't think we can disclose every time someone leaves.
So noted. And again, I think I have closing comments before the sponsor makes comments. I think this was very good discussion, but this issue I think is important to us continuing to move the city forward. I know, for example, besides Public Works, you know, planning department, you know, there was significant lapse when the person that deals with all neighborhood planning councils was no longer there. And so, you know, I fortunately was informed, but prior to the person leaving, but other colleagues weren't. And so, you know, when they need something for an NPC, they didn't know where to go. So I just think, again, as much as we can, I think the language is broad enough that we can, of course, protect legal rights in this and not disclose anything that shouldn't be disclosed. But I do think we should at least strive better, because not only for council purposes, but also the public, you know, so they know who to reach out to. And I think we can find a path forward. So with that, I will kick it to our prime sponsor, if there's any closing comments.
No, I'd just like to thank all the co-sponsors and everything everybody said. You know, I'm not going to repeat it, and we can move on. That will be all from me.
All right.
Thank you.
This time, since this is an ordinance, it does need to be voted out of committee. So at this time, I would make a motion to have the ordinance 22-41 as amended to be voted out of committee to full council for a full vote. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. At this time, I will ask for a voice call vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and this time, ordinance 22-41 as amended with 9 will be added to the full council agenda for a vote. I believe, Marshall, which council meeting will it be on?
November 17th.
November 17th. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, moving right along. This time, we'll, as we do every month, we would ask for the administration to give an update on the use of American Rescue Fund budget allotments. I believe we have Chief of Staff Washington and also Ms. Stephanie Mergler. So I don't know who will go first, but Ms. Mergler?
Yes.
is-
Stephanie will
yours.
present, and I believe there's a PowerPoint.
Okay, there is a PowerPoint. Great. All right. WITN.
Good evening, Chairman Johnson, council members. I am just waiting for the screen share to pop up. Here we go. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much, WITN. So I will just start with an overall, a high-level summary by category. I will go into detail on each of these categories. So just to note here, this is each of our major categories, the budget for each, the amount that has been allocated in each category so far, and the amount that is unallocated. Allocated means it has been dedicated to a specific project. So overall, we started with a budget of $55 million. Out of that, we have allocated $47 million to specific projects, and we have $8 million remaining unallocated. Would you mind going to the next slide? Okay. Our first category is administrative costs. We start with a budget of $1.8 million. That $1.8 million has been dedicated to the projects listed below, leaving us with an unallocated amount of 0. Could you, next slide, please. Our next category is building safer communities. We start with a total budget of $8 million. Of that amount, $1.79 million has been dedicated to the projects listed below. And that leaves us with an amount of $6.2 million available to be dedicated to additional projects. Next slide. Next is community investment. We start with a budget of $4.85 million. Of that amount, $4.45 has been dedicated to the projects listed underneath, leaving us with a balance of $400,000 available for additional projects. Next slide is neighborhood revitalization. We start with a budget of $22 million. Of that amount, the full $22 million has been dedicated to the projects detailed beneath. Next slide. In workforce development, we start with a total budget of $4 million. Of that amount, about $2.6 million has been dedicated to the 3 projects listed underneath, leaving us with an unallocated amount of about $1.4 million. And then finally, on the last slide, we have $12 million going to revenue replacement, and we have paid out $2.664 million to our essential workers. And I will be happy to answer any questions you have about any of our specific projects or in general.
All right, Ms. Mergler, thank you very much for that overview. And I know we always come back every month with some additional requests, but this is a great overview, at least I know, and based on my perspective. But what may be a little bit helpful going forward is if we could have a kind of a tickler or some kind of progress report on things that have changed since last meeting. Because I think some of the contracts we see were in place last month, some weren't, and it's a lot of projects. So, I know I can't do it, and I know some of my colleagues can't to track which ones are new, which ones are, we're in the pipeline. So is there some way we can kind of to show new contracts in the past 30 days, just so we can stay abreast of what the latest is?
Absolutely. In the next presentation, I would be more than happy to highlight the new projects, and I'll denote that underneath. I can do that with this presentation and send it to you after this meeting.
Yes, that'd be great, because I see like the East Side Camera project, that's a contract in progress, that was duly noted. And that was very helpful, actually, I think, for us seeing that, because I noted that was new. in place in the past 30 days. So that'll just help us. So it'll kind of, this outline, at least I know for my purposes, works. I'm not sure if my colleagues will chime in. This actually looks good. I think it's definitely improved over time, but just the kind of update of new contracts, if there was a little breakout for that, that would be helpful as well. But that's really the only question that I had or comment. Any questions or comments by members of council? Vice Chair Harley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The ARPA presentation, is it available for those that are watching from the public?
Would you like, are you asking if I would made it available online?
Yes.
It is,
If I may, yes, it is on the council's website as well for the meeting today.
Okay,
So we do have it uploaded.
okay,
Thanks.
all right, thank
Thank you.
you.
All right. Any other questions or comments by members of council?
Sure. Thank you.
Councilmember?
Yeah, I
Oliver.
was trying to figure out, Books and Bagels LLC, where is that located?
it is in the Hilltop neighborhood.
Okay, I was just double checking, okay.
All right, this time I'll turn to members of the public. Any questions or comments? I saw there was Mr. Fletcher had his hand raised. Mr. Fletcher, do you wish to be heard at this time? WITN? Is Mr. Fletcher there? Okay, Mr. Fletcher, right there. Okay, it looks like he is having some technical difficulties and dropped off. But again, if Mr. Fletcher comes back on, he can certainly be heard. All right. Any other last comments or questions by members of council? All right. All right. Thank you very much. And at this time, and as a note, Ms. Mergler, if you could, within the next 10 days, send us that updated report, and then we'll have the updated kind of template for going on next month forward, okay?
Absolutely, I will provide that to you.
All right, thank you very much for all the work you do. All right, this time we're going to move down the agenda. We have item number 3, which is update on city's infrastructure funds and projects. Do we have Commissioner Williams, or who's there from Public Works? Can't. Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, Chairman Johnson, I
Chief
don't
of Staff.
believe there's been any changes since you last met,
Okay,
okay?
got it. Okay. Very well. All right, and now moving to agenda item number 4, a update on the disparity study for the city of Wilmington. My understanding, there has been significant updates on that end. So is there anything you can share, Chief of Staff Washington, even if the full report is not currently available right now?
It's, Mr. Park is not available. Oh, he probably didn't get did he get a link to participate?
Mr. Park, I see from OED is here.
Okay. He's going to give you an update on the disparity study.
WITN, is there any way you can plug Mr. Park in? Ooh,
Sean, you're on mute. Okay, you're on mute. Okay. You're on mute again. There you go.
okay, he switched back over. All right, Mr. Park, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you see and hear me as well?
Yes, you're loud and clear. All right, Mr.
Great.
Park, the floor is yours, sir.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair and the Finance and Economic Development Committee for this opportunity to present. My update is going to be brief because we wanted Miller 3, who is a consultant on this disparity study, to present the findings of the report next month. And so we've queued them up to present in front of this committee for the next December meeting. And the study is still in progress now, but it should be ready to present next month. And we're estimating maybe 30 to 45 minutes would be sufficient for them to fully go through the study findings. But that would be subject to whatever the committee decides for what's an appropriate length for the presentation as well. But we're expecting next month for them to zoom in, and James Williams and I will be attending in person.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that update, Mr. Park. And by next month, should the report be in a format that it can be consumed by the public, will it be on the website and like a fully functional report?
I'm not sure if by the next meeting that will be available, but they will prepare a PowerPoint presentation to go through the high-level findings of the report. And after that point, I think we can prepare some materials that would be available for the public. But I know that they are focused on the December meeting and preparing the PowerPoint presentation for that.
Okay. And as part of the report, I know this has been years in the making, of course, will it be recommendations for legislative action that we'll be able to take on the council side?
There are recommendations included. However, there's, I think, a very long list of recommendations that I think the city would have to be strategic in choosing which ones to implement. But I want to give the opportunity to the consultants to explain these recommendations and their logic behind it.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions or comments, members of council? Vice Chair Hartley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean, are you going, your office going to have the opportunity to look at these recommendations up against our current code? I know when we originally started this conversation as it relates to disparities and inequities, as it relates to contractors, minority contractors, et cetera, I discovered that there is a code that basically speaks to how the city would try to give, I think it's like 10% of the any kind of development contracts around construction to minority business owners. And so at that point in time, we were told, myself and former council person Dixon, that at that time you didn't have the manpower in your office to reinforce some of these percentages that were already in the code. So back to my original question, are you going to look at some of these recommendations to see what's already in the code and look at it in a way of what can be reinforced versus what needs to be introduced initially?
Great. Thank you for your question. I actually see the Chief of Staff hand raised. I want to give her an opportunity to speak on this.
Yes, so what you will find, at least from the draft that I've read, there are a number of policy and other recommendations that can only be adopted through legislation. And it doesn't just say, okay, you must, this is your path forward. These are the items or the list of issues that can only be achieved through legislation. But me understanding the city that some of this stuff can only go through legislative action of council, we will be conferring with our law department as well as other departments that are impacted by this on how to achieve that. So it's not just cut and dry and said this has to be done legislatively. Some of the stuff is policy that we can adopt through the administrative board, and some of it's legislative. So you'll see a myriad of recommendations.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Yes, Vice Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Washington, I hear what you're saying. My main question is, with some of these recommendations, can the Economic Development Office look at what we already have in the code to see what can be reinforced? And then, of course, there are going to be opportunities, I would think, for us to introduce new policies. But if we could do that, that would be great, just to see, like, when you go through that list of recommendations, what is already on the books that can be reinforced. That's pretty much what I was asking.
Yeah. So much of the recommendations are, Finance Department is impacted by most of the recommendations, because a lot of this has to do with our procurement practices. So, we'll be looking closely at what's currently existing on code and how we can improve upon that, once we, consult with the law department and have a plan of action to make sure that when we go about this, we're doing it right.
Thank you.
All right, President, Councilmember Oliver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask Sean, you said next month. I was looking for a date for next month. And also, talking to this group, I know they said they would be here in November, so I was going to wait to ask a lot of questions after I received the report, because I didn't want to put the cart before the carriage. Could you give me a date for next month that we may have a draft or a copy of this report?
Well, December 5th, the next Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting is a date that we've alerted Miller 3 that they should be prepared to present to this committee. And they will go over the high-level overview of the study methodology, the basis of a disparity study, the legal precedents and whatnot. So I don't want to skip this part of the study and jump straight to the recommendations, because it's very important to understand the context of the recommendations. So the next update will be December 5th.
Okay, follow up.
Yes, please.
No, I wasn't speaking in regards to skipping it. I was trying to see the next date that will be. So I'll be talking to you before that. Thank you so much. That would be all.
Any other questions or comments? Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any way that council and the public can be provided, whatever that presentation is going to be on the 5th, are they able to give that to us a couple of days ahead of time, just so we can have an engaging conversation around it? I mean, it's one thing I appreciate that they're going to present it to us, but I think if we're able to, and if the public, and if they're able to digest it and come up with, some meaningful feedback, that would be a great help.
Okay. Well, sure. We'll definitely circle back with them and find out, how quickly that's the date that they gave us. So we'll try to get it in your hands as soon as we possibly can,
Okay.
Council President.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions by members of council? All right. Now I'm going to turn it to the public. Any comments from the members of the public? And I do see you back on, Mr. Fletcher. So did you have a comment from before or regarding the study? Okay, I see your hand is raised. I'd like to recognize Mr. Fletcher. WITN, is his audio working now?
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. I was just wondering if the information on the ARPA funds presentation that was presented today would be publicly made available. I was watching the presentation but didn't get to see the presentation. And so I was just wondering where that information would be, or if that will be sent out at some point publicly.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher. And I believe we will follow up with the specifics, but from my recollection, it should be on the breakout of the, you go to Wilmington website, it should be /ARPA. Ms. Bass Knight may be able to correct me, but it's a drop page where all these reports are going, correct? Ms. Bass Knight? Unless something's changed.
Yes, so this report is on the council website. If you go under council events, you click on the calendar, you click on finance committee, and it will have the agenda, the legislation, and the PowerPoint.
Okay,
Thanks.
got it. And as a housekeeping matter, I mean, it is a great point brought up. I know there's a separate ARPA website as well, or at least drop down. Maybe there's a way to integrate everything to one site. I don't know if there's a way we can do that. We can talk offline maybe about that. I just think as a good practice, it would be great if everything was in at least one place. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher. Is there any other comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, I'm going to turn it back to members of council for any final comments or questions. All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Park, for sharing the updates, and we're definitely looking forward to this report. And the last item on the agenda is just a brief discussion and reviewing any budgetary cost-cutting measures planned. This is more of a placeholder as budget time is coming up right around the corner. We recently had a WEFAC report as well last week. So things are starting to move, and we need to start figuring out the finances of the city and how the outlook looks. So is there any, I guess, updates from the administration side on as to areas we're at least looking at right now?
No, what I can say is that currently in this current fiscal year FY23, we don't have any more budgetary cost-cutting measures scheduled. However, our discussions with the department happen after we initiate the budget kickoff, which internally our budget kickoff, which occurs in the end of December. And the discussions start with me in January, with me and the Office of Management and Budget. So I can't point to anything. We haven't started those deliberations yet. And the mayor has not given his marching orders to the department head on exactly what he wants to see. So that whole exercise will begin sometime in January.
Okay. All right, so in sum, I guess it's a little bit too early, right? We're about a month and a half too early, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Councilmember Spadola, I will actually turn to you. I know this is one matter you're interested in.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Johnson. I'm curious, so based on what you just said, so let's say, like, this is probably a bad example, but Matt Harris just left the city, his position is vacant. Are you saying that in terms of whether a vacant position needs to be filled, that is only reviewed at the start of the new year, as opposed to each time a vacancy pops up? I guess what I'm saying is, when somebody leaves a position, isn't that position reviewed in terms of, well, do we actually need this position? Or is that only done after budget season kicks off internally?
Well, I can tell you in that particular case, we have every intention on filling that positions. So the vacancies that we have now, there's no action scheduled to eliminate anything right now. I can't say going forward, but in terms of the land use department, we have every intention on filling that position. So it gets to a point where, you end up cutting into your services when you cut too deeply. So this is something that we really take careful deliberations on how we approach this. It's always about the efficiencies of operations, but you don't want to take it to a level where you're actually cutting into city services.
Yes, I agree. I just want to make sure that there's a thoughtful analysis done each time a vacancy pops up. and it's not just a routine, okay, somebody left, we
No.
need to hire. And like I said, Matt was probably a bad example for me to use because I think there is a lot of need for that position. So as long as there's internally thoughtful analysis being done each time, I think that's
Yeah,
good.
just so you know, I meet with all department heads for one-on-one every month. So we discuss, issues that they have in their department. We talk about vacancies, things of that nature, and the plans going forward. So it's, it's something that we're constantly discussing it.
Thank you very much, Chief of Staff. Vice Chair Harley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief of Staff Washington, as it relates to the reform around the parking tickets and et cetera, one, when does that go into effect? And two, what is the, have we looked at the impact financially on our budget? Since we pretty much decided on this after our budget. So I was just curious to know when is it effective and how is it impacting our budget?
Okay, sure. That's a good question. Yeah, we've discussed, and OMB, along with the finance department, have come up with how this will impact our bottom line. However, the reforms that we're talking about, when you're talking about reducing parking ticket fees, that would not become effective until July 1, so going into FY24. So we wouldn't institute those changes until the next fiscal year.
Follow up.
Yes, please.
So based on that, I'm glad to hear that because of course, the communication went out and so people were like all amped up about it. So that's good to know. It won't be effective until July 2024. Do you have any ideal?
I'm sorry, going into July 2023,
Oh,
July
okay.
1, 2023, but that's considered FY24.
Right, okay. So do we have any idea as to the impact?
When we bring that legislation before council, hopefully that'll be really soon. You'll have privy to those numbers. I don't want to misquote anything, so it's going to come back before the finance committee when we're ready to adopt the legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember, floor is yours.
Sure. Council, okay, say Councilman, Chief of Staff, Washington, hopefully, we could get a scheduled, meeting with, Preston from, Public Works since since some of his guys will be affected by it. So I'd like Marshall to, I'm sorry, Mona, to schedule an appointment so he can be involved with the conversation. That's all relating to street cleaning. I meant to send that email out. I'm sorry. Okay, that's it.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments by members of the council? All right. Then turn it to members of the public. Any comments or questions on this agenda item? All right. Going once, going twice. Going back to members of council. Any final questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much, Chief of Staff. And again, I understand we have a lot on our agenda heading into January, so this is an important topic. And as always, council, we look to be even more proactive than we even have been in the past. So as much as the earlier we can get involved in these talks with the department heads, I think the smoother the budget process will go. So again, thank you very much, Chief of Staff.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I do not, we have finished our agenda and we, right at this point, I believe our next Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting is scheduled for December 5th. I'm not sure what the structure will look like because we will have the disparity study presentation. So we will decide what we do with the rest of the agenda. So again, that we can give due time to everything else. So we'll update the public on how exactly we'll be managing either one or several meetings in December, so that we can get through everything. At this time, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting for November has concluded, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Be safe.
Good night.